Welcome to the Space and Grace podcast. I am your host, Tanisha Harris, and I am your CHEO, Chief Honesty and Encouragement Officer. Here at Space and Grace, we focus on healing, laughing, thriving, and loving. And we do that by granting ourselves and others the space and grace to evolve in very practical ways. Y'all ready? Let's do this. Hello and welcome to Space and Grace. I'm so glad you all are here with me. I am so thankful. I am honored. You know, this is the podcast where we focus on healing, and we do that by granting ourselves and others the space and the grace to evolve in very practical ways. I'm your host, Tanisha. So, in today's episode, we'll be talking about authenticity and discovering our true selves. If you have been listening to me for quite some time, you know that I have an episode on authenticity in season 1, episode 2 or 3. But I'm bringing this back around because I've learned some new things and I want to share. And you know who's going to be the example as we learn and as we share? Me. So, who am I? Truly, deeply. Normally, I would start an OG podcast by giving the definition of the main topic. But I also know that we can all research and Google a definition. So I think we should start person centered. I think we should start centering ourselves. And so I'm going to ask you, while also asking me, what does authenticity mean to you? What does authenticity mean to me? Okay, so let's start there. What is authenticity to you? What would it mean if you could define and create the parameters around fully showing up as yourself? What would that look like? How would it make you feel? Me? For me, authenticity is showing up as God created me. Period. It's fully recognizing that I am unlearning and I am learning. But each day I get to bring every layer of me with me. I no longer divide myself into pieces and keep them separately. I place each puzzle piece in its place every morning and allow it to add to the masterpiece of who I am, of the full puzzle. I believe and I recognize that each piece of my puzzle represents my voice, my spirit, my soul, my heart. Now, we all know how puzzles work. The pieces fit. You can't jumble them up. And so I bring those pieces with me, allowing the pieces that need to serve me for that day and that time to do so. But I get to do that and I get to choose which piece. I do. Nobody else does. I get to choose which piece to represent my voice and my spirit and my soul and my heart. And sometimes it's 2 pieces. Sometimes it's 3. Sometimes it's a piece that I'm struggling with because I'm learning and I'm unlearning and I have to kind of push it in there, but it fits because it's my piece. So authenticity for me, showing up with all the puzzle pieces that God gave me, that God used to create me. Full stop. So now we've defined what authenticity means to us. Now, how do we show up authentically? How do we show up in a world that is full of confusion and chaos, cultural misunderstanding, social injustices? How? We're exhausted, we're overwhelmed. You already know the answer to this one: with full space and grace to ourselves and to others. When I say space, I mean reserving a room for a particular purpose, reserving a room in your heart for a particular purpose. That purpose could be grief or anxiety, shame or fear, hurt or embarrassment, joy, happy, love, excitement. And you reserve this room to process those feelings. If they are negative feelings, we don't want to hold on to them, but we do want to process them, to manage them. We reserve this room to learn how to navigate these feelings. And when I say grace, I mean having a sense of consideration, considering your hurt and your past, your influences, your impacts, your circumstances, your traumas, and also considering others. Considering someone else's hurt and someone else's past and someone else's influence and someone else's impact, and treating and behaving accordingly. Giving ourselves and giving others the space and grace allows us to consider our full selves before deciding on the value of self or of others. Giving myself the full space and grace allows me to consider all of my pieces, all of my layers before I decide the value of one piece of that puzzle and I throw it out or I don't make it fit. It allows me to be fully aware that I am in a constant state of unlearning and learning. And ultimately, this means that I'm fully aware of my strengths, my opportunities for improvement, and how my emotions may indicate different levels of excitement or trauma or joy in my life. I show up with all of those pieces, now giving myself the space and grace to consider them and to reserve a room for them so I can navigate these emotions and these thoughts. So I now know how to show up authentically. I now know which piece of the puzzle I need today. Okay, so we've defined authenticity. We've talked about how do we show up, but really, tangibly, what does this look like? Showing up in the world is a success all in and of itself. Okay, when we actually show up, that is a success. But how do we do this authentically and daily? I think we have to ground ourselves one day at a time. I think we have to ground ourselves daily. How do we do that? Maybe you can ask yourself, what makes you feel most like you? What makes you feel joy? What makes you feel excited? What makes you feel relaxed? For me, it is continuing to spend time with nature. I must get outside every day. And not just like a walk to the car. I have to literally experience the birds, the wind in the trees, feeling the sun. I must. This year has taught me that when I am not outside, when I don't have natural light, when I don't feel natural air, I am not myself. I am not full. And therefore, really, I'm not joyful or happy to be around. Y'all, I have been biking for almost 3 months now, and it has been a full blessing to my soul. I love it. Never thought that I would, but I enjoyed it growing up. So we always come back to our center, right? Once you ask yourself what makes you feel most yourself, or what makes you feel most joyful or exciting or relaxed or at peace, the other way to ground ourselves daily, the other way to show up authentically, is to find and fight for safe spaces. And you have to define what safe is to you. But to me, I bring all those puzzle pieces. And if all those puzzle pieces can be laid out across the floor and there's no problem, that's my safe space. So about 2 weeks ago, I visited some good girlfriends in Birmingham, and y'all, it was full of love and laughter, and I needed every bit of it because I packed up all my puzzle pieces and I took them with me. And I was able to just sprawl out all those puzzle pieces with my friends, and it was a blessing. And I've been blessed to have more than one safe space. So find and fight for your safe space. Another way to truly show up who I am is to know who I am. So identify ways to connect with who you actually are. Try new things, things that you like, things that you think you like, and always do the things that you love. How can you really show up authentically if you haven't spent any time with you? Let me tell you something else I've been doing besides biking: coloring with alcohol markers and watercolors and colored pencils and crayons and water brush pens. And it has just been a blessing. It has been so fulfilling and fun and hard, but fun. And I love it. My Jeezy boys. I continue to do the things that ground me, and I do them unapologetically, and I do them for me. Most of the time, I do them by myself. So I want to end with this. Normally, if you're like in the professional space and there's a summit or a conference or something where you're kind of ending, they like to leave you with a call of action. It's what marketers use to get us to perform a desired action. But I would like to leave us with a call of emotion. So instead of this call of action, I want to leave us with a call of emotion. I want to leave us with a quote or a thought or a question that provokes thought, that requires us to find a deeper meaning about our topic today. So, our call of emotion today is a question, two questions. What brings you joy? And what makes you feel alive? What brings you joy? And what makes you feel alive? Let's figure out what that is. And when we find those things, let's take note of how we feel. Let's take note of whether or not we slowed our breathing. Let's take note of whether or not our hearts have raced. Let's take note of whether or not we feel peaceful and less stressed. Let's take note of what those things feel like. When our body responds in those ways, peaceful, relaxed, that means something. So let's meditate on that for next week. Let's find out something new about ourselves. And let's continue to show up authentically. See y'all. So that's it, guys. That wraps up today's episode. Remember, Space and Grace focuses on healing, laughing, thriving, and loving. We want to show the beauty and strength in offering space and grace to every aspect of our lives. Y'all ready? Let's do this.